Hey, good afternoon. Today we're making improvised home squat rack out of some common Home Depot materials. So what you see here is the bulk of all 10 racks that we're producing for today, but if you want to make one by yourself, it's pretty simple. So you're going to need 5 10-foot 2x4s, and we're using the just the white wood, the cheapest ones I have there. Those run you about $5.50 a piece. We're using high strength Quickcrete 60-pound bag. You're going to do one per individual squat rack set. That'll run you about $3.50. And then we've got some other components that we're going to use. We've got 2.5-inch screws. You'll see those later. About 28 per set of pylons for the squat rack, and then some wood glue. As far as measurements go, we templated off an actual squat rack. Went ahead and took measurements for roughly approximately where the bar is going to sit, and I can kind of walk you through our design too for the overall end product. This is also a versatile piece of equipment because you can also use it to bench press as well. So there's 2 tiers that you'll see that are set on it. You've got your top tier and the bottom tier for squat and bench. Yeah. Come on, come on, come on! Nice. All right, first we're going to begin by cutting our 10-foot 2x4s. If you don't have a fancy compound miter saw like this, Home Depot will make 2 cuts per piece of wood for free. So just go in with your measurements ahead of time, and you'll be able to cut the wood and just go home and screw it together yourself. So we'll go ahead and start off by measuring our first piece. So we'll just go with the longest piece this time. 78 inches, and again, all these dimensions are really based on your own height. So this cut is 78 inches, and it's going to be the backstop of the squat rack itself. So as you walk back in, it'll be the first part that the bar makes contact with. So here, using the scrap from the first piece, cutting our front of the squat rack, which is 39.5 inches. And again, repeating the process. Measure once, cut once. So we'll just template off our first cut. So even if it's not exactly what we wanted, at least we'll get the same cut on the second time. Then for this piece, we'll move on to the lip that will catch the squat bar. And again, with these pieces, just measure out the first one and then template it on that second cut, since we're going with the same measurements on each side for everything to be level and parallel. So it's 59.5. We're building in 1.5 inch buffer that's going to catch the bar, make sure it doesn't fall back on top of you. Now with our final piece of 2x4, we're going to put the bar or the platform that our bar will sit on when we do bench press. So for this one, it's 38 inches, and again, remember back to the first cut, it was 39.5, building in that 1.5 inch buffer. All right, that was our last cut. So now we have all 10 pieces that we need to construct our squat rack. So we've got our finished pieces all cut out here, arrayed in the order that we constructed. We've actually got it here so it's doubled up. But what we'll be doing is taking each of these cuts and then just one of each dimension then. So starting at the bottom, this is the portion that the bench will sit on, or the bar for the bench press. So our first dimension, 39.5 inches, and this one's 38 inches tall. Next, we go up to the level that will support the barbell during the squat. So this piece is 59.5 inches. And then we have the piece that we cut that the barbell itself will sit on. This one is 58 inches. And then finally, we have our backstop for the squat rack. This one is 78 inches. So here's a snapshot of what everything's going to look like once it's all glued and screwed together. So next we're going to assemble all the pieces we just cut. Again, I talked about us using the screws. If you really wanted to, you could actually just drill through and bolt it all together. 6 or half dozen the other, it all works. Today we're using those 2.5-inch screws because that's what we have on hand. So we'll just start with our base layer. That's the backdrop. Just apply glue for the length of the piece that's going to sit in front of it. All right, so glue's applied. Next, we're going to sit on our second piece here. And again, usually I take a smaller piece of wood, just butt it up against the bottom, make sure that's flush, and it'll sit level on the bottom of that bucket. We go for final construction. So just butting the pieces up and then making sure vertically that it's also aligned. It's good, it's sitting in place. We're just gonna take 4 screws for this length, and we're gonna go top to bottom and just screw them in. Wow, that was a perfect hit right there. So make sure you stagger your screws, or else you'll run the risk of screwing into another screw. We just gotta repeat the same process we just went through. So again, we'll glue everything down. I'm not gonna bore you guys with the details. Just glue, screw, and then we're ready for it. Glue and screw, baby. Step 3. So we're gonna take our 2x4s that have all been glued and screwed together, and we're gonna move them into the bucket. This will be the foundation for the squat rack. So just kind of setting it in there, eyeballing, try and find a level surface. In concrete sets, it'll all level out and it'll look better, and the bar will sit even and straight. So that's the end state that we're looking for there. So once that's prepped and ready to go, we're gonna mix our concrete in a separate bucket, and we're gonna pour it around the rack itself. So first we'll take our bag of Quickcrete, and we're gonna pour about half of it in to our bucket here. So 1 bag for the entire process. All right, when you pour the concrete in, just make sure that you don't pour it all in one lump, because the water is just gonna sit on top, and it's huge pain to try and stir it. So maybe pour about 1/4 of the bag. Add a couple cups of water. I'm just gonna eyeball it here. You want more of a watery consistency for this process, so it'll fill around the base. You're not having to get in there with your hands and actually smooth the concrete out. So pour in our water, and then we're gonna use our shovel here, just stir it up a bit. Now we're gonna add that other 1/4 of the bag, take us to about half. Again, pour a couple cups of water in, and we're gonna mix until it looks to the consistency that we want. So kind of soupy, but firm enough that it'll form around the foundation of the squat rack. It's a little runny, but it's not too solid that it's not gonna easily flow out of the bucket. So for this step, we're just gonna take our bucket and then walk around the base. Make sure not to pour it all on one side, because it's gonna force your rack to move around in the bucket. So pour a little bit out on each side. All right, now we're done pouring all of our concrete. Just kick around the bucket. That'll make it a little more dense and compact. Ideally, when you pour the concrete, you want to have it in its final resting place, because this thing gets heavy. You don't want to drag it around. But for our video here, we're gonna have to move it into the garage. So we've got a level surface there. This is kind of what the finished product looks like. So we've got our left and right squat rack poles. So the final step before the concrete sets, this is an important part, just get a level and make sure that that everything's square and level. So vertically, and then or horizontally, and then move it over vertically, and then just make sure that everything's squared away. This way, when you go to squat, you'll make sure that the bar will make contact with each of the squat rack poles at the same time.
Any final words?
I think that's about it.
baby.
Blue and screw.
You're a great on camera.
Oh yeah, I'm the best. It's a lap track.